is, boys and girls. 5:30.
Yay!
Yay! I think we have a few more coming in, but that's all right. We'll just be hospitable. My name is Vicki Hendrickson. This is my darling friend, Jen Antwistle. We're the co-chairs of the Newburyport Literary Festival, and we're thrilled to have you here. It's such a treat to have Jeff Kinney. Boy, I'm telling you. I mean, we're good to get him. That's just a real good thing. All right, so now this is our 12th festival, and we have many underwriters and many people who volunteer with us every year whom we'd like to thank.
So in particular, we want to thank the Newburyport 5-Cent Bank, the Institution for Savings, Bookish, and the local cultural councils of Newbury and Newburyport. This year, we are so excited to have so many young faces in the audience. As I'm sure you all know, Jeff Kinney is right here. He's going to be in conversation with young adult author Lucia Green. Lucia is the author of A Tunnel in the Pines and will be at the Knock Middle School on May 12th, serving as the author in residence there.
So before we get started, we're very fortunate today to have our mayor, Donna Holliday. Mayor Holliday is here, and she has a welcoming note for Jeff Kinney. Mayor Holliday.
Thank you, and welcome to the Literary Festival. This is one of the most exciting events in our city, and this year it's so nice to have the opening event be directed towards youth and kids, and to see all of you here. So how many of you have read one of this guy's books? Just a few. So, and I think you're going to be surprised as I read a little bit about Jeff that you learn a little bit about his connection here to Newburyport. So this is the way we always start the Literary Festival, with a proclamation. So if you would pay attention for just a couple minutes before Jeff comes up. Whereas the 2017 Literary Festival honoree, Jeff Kinney, is an American writer whose talents are not limited to only writing. He is also a cartoonist, producer, and game designer, as well as the best-selling author of the... I can't hear you. Come on, the Wimpy Kids series. There you go. Whereas Jeff grew up in Fort Washington, Maryland, and while studying at the University of Maryland, he created Ig Doof, a comic strip for the campus newspaper. Its success inspired Jeff to become a cartoonist. And whereas in 1995, Jeff moved to New England, and we are proud to state that he worked at the Daily News of Newburyport for a period of time.
Yay!
Won't you come back? I think you could talk to that guy right over there. He might be able to give you a job. Richard Lodge, the editor of the Daily News. Anyway, so in 1998, he began work on Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and in the spring 2007, it was finally published. A series was born. The Wimpy Kid series was adapted to screen by 20th Century Fox, and Jeff being named executive producer. To date, 3 movie adaptations have been completed, and whereas topping the list of the New York Times best-selling author, Jeff is also listed as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. Whoa. I forgot something. In the whole world.
Whoa!
He won the Dorothy Canfield Fisher Children's Book Award, which is voted on by children. I love that. While preparing for another upcoming book, Jeff also works as an online game developer and designer. With his many creations, he is also the architect of the children's website, poptropic.com. Jeff resides in Massachusetts with his wife, Julie, and their 2 sons, Will and Grant. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Donna D. Holliday, Mayor of the City of Newburyport, speaking for all of its residents and guests, and especially our children, honor publicly Jeff and declare April 28th, Jeff Kinney Day in Newburyport. Given under my hand and seal, this 28th day in April, Donna D. Holliday, Mayor.
Woo!
Have a great customer.
Yeah. Okay, I'm almost done. Now, at the end of the presentation that Jeff does, we're going to have people go in sections to get their books signed in the vestry. So we'll direct you. So just stay seated, be patient, and as soon as he's back in the back, we'll come and tell you exactly who goes where when. All right? So guess what? We're ready. Here he is.
Is it me?
Yep, it's you.
All right.
All right, here it is.
Hi, Jeff. Are you sitting over here?
Oh, we're going to end with that. Is that okay? Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? I have to say, it's very, very good to be back in Newburyport. This is my favorite town in the whole world, no lie. I don't say that to every town that I go to. When I first moved up here in 1995, I came from Maryland, and I just felt like I could stay the rest of my life here. The only thing that's keeping me away is other family connections in southern Massachusetts, but one day I hope to move up here, so it's a great town. Also, it's very funny, I never could have predicted that a day would be named Jeff Kinney Day. I was the graphics editor and headline writer of the Newburyport Daily News for just 1 year. It was a great year. But I made lots of mistakes as a junior member of the staff, and the worst mistake I ever made was that we introduced actually something called a skybox, which is that we put graphics at the very top of the newspaper page. I think it was the first time we had ever done that in that newspaper. And so I used to use an image and then tease what was going on inside. Well, it just so happened that on this one day, we had a section on meatball recipes in the back of the paper. So I thought it would be wise to put a meatball at the top of the page, right? What I didn't realize was that Amesbury's First Flush ran right next to that as a headline. So I was responsible for that, right? Very embarrassing. Hopefully Amesbury's had many flushes since then, right? It might have been another town, but I think I'm close. Okay, so I'm excited to be here, especially because when I came to move to Massachusetts in '95, I was fresh out of college, and what I really wanted to become was a newspaper cartoonist. So I thought it was a good idea that I worked at a newspaper. That was a good way to get started. And so for about 3 years, I tried really hard to become a newspaper cartoonist. And we're going to advance the slide. Let's see if this works. There we go. So some of my favorite newspaper cartoons were the Peanuts, for example, and The Far Side. How many kids know The Far Side? Just a handful. How many grown-ups remember The Far Side? A lot of grown-ups. Well, there are a lot of grown-ups here, or you just raise both hands. That's a little intimidating. I'm used to dealing with kids here. One of my very favorites was Bloom County, right? Very favorite. And Calvin and Hobbes. It's interesting that the kids still know Calvin and Hobbes. I think the last one was written almost 25 years ago, so that'll make us grown-ups feel old. And how about Big Nate? Yeah? Written by Lincoln Peirce in Maine. So coming out of college, in college, actually, I created my own cartoon character named Igdoof. And here he was. you can see he's this very strange-looking character. And he's got big eyes and a big nose and big lips and big ears, right? He's this short character. This is what I was trying to get syndicated. And I was unsuccessful. And what happened was I learned a lot about cartooning by failing to become a cartoonist. In a few minutes, I'll show you some of my, I'll try. We'll see if we can do some live drawings. Okay, so what I did was after about 3 years of trying to become a newspaper cartoonist, I decided to give up on that dream. I decided that instead, I would start writing about this character named Greg Heffley, who was a middle school kid who drew his own comics in his diary or journal. So that's where the idea from Diary of a Wimpy Kid came from. And I wanted to show you some of the sketchbook pages that I filled up. Let's take a look. Okay, I know you can barely see it, and I think I'm blocking you guys the whole time, so I apologize for that. But these were, what I tried to do was I tried to write down every single funny thing that ever happened to me as a kid, right? So I was kind of at a low point in my life. This was about 1998 when I started. And I was at a low point in my life. I had gotten a divorce. My first marriage didn't work out. And I was on my own. And she just applauded for me. That's really odd. And that's not my second wife either, right? So, is applauded a verb? Does that work? Okay, okay. So I got this idea for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I decided to start writing down every funny thing that happened to me as a kid. I thought that I'd fill up this sketchbook with all these ideas. I thought it would take me about a month. And you can see, if you could see, I know it's really hard to see, but here's, for example, when Greg writes a moose paper, right? When a man evolves into a moose, for example. Let's look at some other things here. All right, we're just gonna scan right on through. These are a little too small to see here, I think. And one more, how about that? And just one more. Okay, yeah, we'll freeze there. Here's another, we'll end with another moose thing, is that Greg hears that mooses, that they don't know, like when they're hiding behind something, when their eyes are hidden, they don't think that you can see them. So that's something I heard that I thought was funny, so I put it into the book. Everything funny that ever happened to me as a kid or anything I could think of, I put it into this sketchbook. And instead of taking me just a month, it actually took me 4 years to fill up this sketchbook. And then I spent 4 more years writing the first draft of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So after 1998, it was 8 years. Now I'm going to try something. We'll see if this works. Okay. We were having technological difficulties earlier, and we'll see if this works.
Can I sing a little something?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Okay, let's see. Go to here.
Somebody's singing.
Okay. Could you hold it up to my mouth? Okay, it looks like I'm going to be able to draw here, which is good. So when I drew Igdoof, you know, I didn't know a lot about cartooning, but I learned a lot by drawing as a kid. So you can see that Greg Heffley here is actually just Igdoof, really simplified. And my technology isn't quite working, so it's a little shaky, so I apologize for the bad drawings. You guys are going to look at these and say, this is not the guy who does Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Okay. So here I'm drawing Greg, and you notice that with Igdoof, he had just those 3 strands of hair, and so does Greg. So I learned a lot about cartooning, is that cartooning is really the art of simplification. So when I draw, I try to use as few lines as possible, right? Because I think that that's what a good cartoonist does. They try to express as much as they can with as little information as possible. Even the hands of a typical cartoon character, they usually don't have 5 fingers, they have 4, because 4 is sort of just enough, right? And so when I started to draw as a middle school kid, I learned that I could get a lot more across by really using this simplified style. I think I've cut off his head here. So what's interesting is that in Japan, the characters are actually drawn with 5 fingers because there's a tradition in Japan where you can't draw people with less than 5 fingers or you can't get your work in print. There's a whole story behind that, which you'll have to look up on the internet. So all of my characters in Japan have 4 fingers. I mean 5. Okay, so here's Greg Heffley. All right, and that's how I draw him. Thank you. I usually do a little bit better, like I said. I'm a little shaky today. 2.5 hours of traffic from Plainville, Massachusetts to Newburyport today. It's okay? All right. Great. So here is another Greg head, and I am going to cheat in a second here. Okay. So this is how just about every drawing of Greg starts off. With just the head, that same basic head shape. And you can kind of see this, right? Not so bad. All right. So here are 4 Greg heads. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger here. This is what's great about drawing on a computer, is that I can cheat like that. Now, I'm going to show you how with just a few lines I can really change the way that you think about this character. So if I draw this line, we think of Greg as, what's the expression? How does he feel? Sad. Here he's happy, right? How about if I draw his mouth open like this? And I'm going to throw you for a loop here. You say shocked, but we'll go with this. And now you say he is talking, right? All right, and here he is, he's got his mouth, his teeth gritted, right? So you can see those are 4 very different looks for the character with just a few line changes. Now, here, if I add this one line, we all agree that Greg is sad right here. But if I add this line, now we say he's doing what? He's concentrating, that's a good word. Now I'd say here he feels hungry, right? If I draw this little line here, you might say he's concentrating, but he's also tired, right? And now he's talking, but now he is angry, he's shouting, right? If I add a little bit more to this one, if I get scared, my pupils are dilated, so I'm going to draw wide eyes here, for example, right? And it nervous, right? And if I wanted to really sell it that he's scared, right, I've got these wiggle lines, right? And now if I draw these little bubbles above his head that are going off, then maybe he's drunk, who knows? I don't know. He's something else, right? It's a lot. Now, if I change a few more lines here, you'll see that it'll really, really change the way you feel about this character. Okay. So we're going to go with this, right? Right? Okay. So you can see that Greg is really Roderick in disguise, right? Is that, and as a cartoonist, I've given you a lot of hints that Greg is really Roderick's brother because the head shape is the same, the nose shape, the eyes are placed the same way. So those are the hints that I give you. Now, Greg actually has another brother, right? Let's try him out. So I'm going to draw Manny, start with the eyes, just like Greg. And you can see it goes haywire right away. This doesn't look like Greg. Right? He's almost like a baby alligator, right? And how do you know that he is Greg's brother? Just from looking at him, you know from the hair, right? So that tells you that he is also Greg's brother. Now I'm going to try something. I've tried this before. I have not been successful, but I'm going to try to draw Manny with my eyes closed because I'm feeling lucky today. And I've drawn him for 10 years, so I'm going to try now. And I promise I won't open my eyes. Okay, so 2 eyes. Do I have it right so far? Yes? No mistakes? And then, how am I doing? Good? I might want to stop there because now I've lost my place on the page. Am I in good shape? Ish? Yes? All right. Feeling encouraged? All right. I don't like that. And then he's got 2 teeth. Wow. And that is why I never got to be a real cartoonist, right? What's really fun about cartooning is that hopefully, if I've done my job, people into the future, 20 years from now, would know that that's Greg Heffley, right? If I've done my job. Now, let me see if I can pull up this other file. It'll take me 1 second. All right, owner reason, da-da-da. Hopefully I don't have anything embarrassing here. Okay. Can you hold that? I actually love karaoke. All right. Okay, so other better cartoonists have really drawn these iconic cartoon characters like this one. If I just do that one line, Charlie Brown, you know it right away, right? Charlie Brown from his hair. And I didn't even do a good job of drawing his hair, but you still knew who it was. All right, how about this one? If I go like this, and then like that. Is that enough? Big Nate, no? Yes? Not Big Nate? Somebody else is going to say Big Nate. Yes, way in the back. What's that? Not him, whoever you said, because it didn't sound like it. So I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to know right now. Okay, 1 and 2. I haven't heard it. I heard it. SpongeBob. Right? So how about a superhero, right? Uh-oh, I'm going too long here. Okay. Spider-Man, I heard it already, right? And then one line here. Not Superman, you're still stuck on superheroes. Woodstock. All right. So now I'm going to get back into my speech, and I'm going to go fast because I know I'm running over my time. We're okay? Okay, great. All right. So thanks for letting me draw. That was actually really cool to be able to draw a little bit. Thank you. So I wanted to show you how the ideas started off as ideas in that sketchbook and then where they came from, just with one idea. Let's take a look here. Okay, so here's a drawing. Can you tell me what book that's from? What book that made it into? The second one. Yep, he knew it right away. Roderick Rules, when the teenagers have a party and then they get caught because they accidentally take a picture of themselves, right? So I'll show you this image right here. Okay, that's how it ended up in the book. That's what it looked like in the book at the end. I'll show you where the idea came from. So, I had a high school girlfriend. This is when I was in high school. I do not currently have a high school girlfriend. And she had, her mother reached for a camera on a shelf, and when she grabbed it, the flash went off, and she accidentally took a picture of herself. Let's take a look. So, with Facebook and everything, one day she's going to find me and say, stop putting my mother up on the screen. But you can see it's the same exact expression of surprise. But that's an idea that started off as something in real life and then really got twisted into something that ended up in my books. So after working on Diary of a Wimpy Kid for 8 years, I brought it to something called New York Comic Con, and a year later, the first book was published. And that was a very, very exciting moment. And I think, thank you. And that was 10 years ago now. We're celebrating the 10th year of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And there are a lot of authors here today in this festival. And I think everybody would agree on this, is that what's so exciting about being an author is having this idea in your head and then having somebody else make it into something real in print, something you can hold. I think it's so important, especially that kids are given real books instead of a download on a screen. Because a book is a treasured object, and I think it's just wonderful to be a published author. I don't take it for granted for 1 second. Life has gotten really strange in some ways since I got published. In some ways, it's the same. I still live in a little town called Plainville and have a really normal life. In some ways, life has gotten really strange. One of the ways it's gotten strange is that the book has been published in now 53 languages, and one of them was Latin. Right? And I got a very excited call from my Italian publisher that said, "You'll never believe who we gave the first copy to," right? It was the Pope. Yeah, that was strange. You guys call him the Pope, I just call him Pope, right? So that was strange. Here's a funny story. I actually got to go to the White House and I met the Obama family with my parents and my family. So here's a picture. So there's my dad, my mom, and the Obama family, and then my nuclear family, including Will and Grant. And they really wanted my kids, I was going to read on the White House lawn, and my kids really wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to sit next to me while I read on the White House lawn. So my kids are bad, right? Or can be bad. And I was really nervous about sitting next to them. I'm a nervous guy anyway, but with these two, squirming kids, I was really nervous at the White House. But we had this moment, and I'll show you a picture of it. So here's myself and then my two kids, Will and Grant, right? And there was actually a really cool moment because I was reading with the book in my lap, and at one point Grant, who had just started to learn to read, he came over and he read the book out of my lap, right? So here's a picture of that. And then when we got home, we got home back to Massachusetts, I was really proud of my kids because they were pretty good during this, and they behaved, right? And then when I watched the playback on the White House's official website, I found out that Will got this idea, right, while my younger son was reading, and you can almost see it play out here, okay? Right? Yeah, he gets the idea. Please, Will, don't do this. No. Don't spank my child on the government website, right? So, yeah. So that happened in real life. Let's see if I have a picture. Do I have a picture of those guys nowadays? No, I don't. I might have one a little bit later on. Yeah, this is where I live in Plainville. I'm a big believer in independent books, in independent bookstores. And thank you. Thanks. We have a lot of independent bookstores around here. In Plainville, they didn't have one, so we built one. This is called An Unlikely Story. If you're ever down in the region, it's a good place. But I wanted to show you a picture of my kids now. This is Will, who's just outgrown me, so I'm glad he's not still spanking people. But my younger son, Grant, it was actually really sad today. He's been sick for 3 days, and he literally won't say a word, like he's nauseous, and he won't say a word. And if anybody talks in the house, he tries to shut him down, but he's just sitting there like a zombie today. And so I got ready for this event today. I dressed up. I ironed my shirt. I put it on. I was getting ready to walk out the door, and Grant said the first words he said in 3 days. He goes, "You look like a nerd." That's what he said. Okay, I'm going to go fast now. This is for the kids. I wasn't sure how many kids would be here tonight, but we have a new movie coming out in a few weeks, so I wanted to show you a little sneak peek. Yeah. So I wrote a book about it because that's what I do. I wrote a book about it. And it was really cool seeing my drawings come to life on screen. So here's the pig raiding the snack bar, right, at the hotel. Here's another picture of Manny with his pacifier, and then Manny in real life, right? We actually sometimes use a robot Manny who could just suck on a pacifier and look like he was asleep. And we also used a robot pig from time to time. And here he is, right here, laying on his side. And there's a remote control that says oink on it, which is really cute. So watch the movie, see if you can tell the difference between the real Manny and the robot Manny and the real pig and the robot pig. So, and here's a scene that was really fun to film. One of the cool scenes in the long haul was when a seagull gets loose in the car. I wanted to show you what that looks like when you're filming it. First, you storyboard it, you plan it. And then, here is what it really looked like on set. So here's Greg with a bag of cheese curls, and then there's this plastic green handle sort of reaching out and grasping and pulling at the bag. And then they start to animate it by putting in this rough version of a seagull, right? And then the last shot looks like a pretty realistic seagull, right? So we actually, just yesterday, I got a hold of the footage of this. So I'm going to show it to you guys here. And let's see if this works. We'll see if the audio works, right? Okay, so here we go. And you have to press it one more time, I think. Yeah, let's turn up the volume pretty high. For some reason, you can't hear the adults talking, but he's saying, Greg, don't encourage him. Says, Greg, Dad, could you close the sunroof? Thanks for checking that out. And we also have, just I'm wrapping up here. Do I have time to show a 3-minute video? Are you sure? Okay, this is kind of cool. I'm making a new book, and it's based on traveling and airplane travel, and I've done a lot. In the past few years, I've traveled all over the world, so we actually put together a video. And let's see if it works. Okay, I'm going to try it out. This is the travels from last year's tour. Hopefully this will work. Oh, this. Oh no. It looks like the sound is. You can turn it up a little. Yeah, it's good. Thanks for indulging me that. And we have one more thing for the kids, is that we have I have a new book coming out. I say we. I have a new book coming out in November 7th that I have not written at all, but I have the cover done, so I'd love to show you guys the cover. You ready for it? All right, here we go. So you have to count down from 5. You ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is. Oh, nope. It was there for a second. Okay, there we go. I hope you like it. All right. So thank you so much. I know I went over, and I think we're going to talk, Lucia, correct?
Yeah, well.
We have a little bit of time, do we?
Jeff, I can't remember anything I was going to talk to you about.
Should we put the stools up here? That's cool,
Yeah,
right?
that's-
Yeah, all right. We were going to be way up there, but...
No, we don't want to be God.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Thanks again for
Okay.
having me.
So, just quickly, since you brought up about your bookstore, an unlikely story, and everybody in this town knows that bookstores, independent bookstores, are the key to keeping people reading in America, right? We have the Jabberwocky, the Book Rack. I read that, let's talk about your work habits. I read that every day you go to the bookstore when you're in Plainville, correct?
Just about every
Just
day I
about
go to the
every day.
bookstore. I was there today, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got a studio on the top floor?
Yeah, I have a studio that one day we're going to open up to kids so they can come and sit and draw at my desk and things
Cool,
like that. It's
cool.
a wimpy world up there.
So in that studio, are you doing Pop Tropica, or are you doing books, or both? What are you doing?
I do a little bit of everything, yeah. So I do a little bit of everything just about every day, whatever comes up.
Cool. And how about weekends? You don't go there on weekends.
Boy, when I'm working on a book hard, I'm working every day, truly 13 to 17 hours a day for, I guess, about 2 or 3 months.
Okay. So if anybody goes to Plainville and goes to An Unlikely Story, you can ask to go to the top floor and see Jeff, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
That's great. How about, let's talk about, have you ever incorporated any ideas from fans, your young fans, into any of your books? Has anybody given you any idea you could use?
Every so often a kid will. One kid said it would be funny if Sweetie, who's Greg's dog, got too fat to move. And so I did draw Sweetie as this dog with these tiny legs that stick out, yeah.
So if anybody in the audience, any of the kids here, wanted to give you an idea, can they go on your website and just send it in to you?
Yeah, but they'll have to send in a huge legal document that tells me that I own their intellectual property.
Okay, forget that. You can talk to Jeff when you're in the line buying his books. That sounds good. I'm interested too. I read that you called the illustrations in your books islands, helping kids get from one block of text to another.
Right. Even when I was in college, even to this day, I would see like an open textbook in college, and there would be an image up here, a photo, and then a photo down there, and a lot of text in between. And I thought of these images as little islands to swim to, right? I was like, if I could just get over there, I can make it through this page.
Right.
And I think a lot of kids think like that. They need that visual to
Right.
get to. It's a reward. It's a reward. So I have an
Right.
image on every page of Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Well, I also read that you had 1,000 images in the first book. Is that correct?
I think it was 300, but
Oh.
there overall, there are about 3,000 images in all of the books.
Wow, okay. That's a great idea. So I have a problem because it used to be children's books had more illustrations, but because it's expensive for publishers to do, unless they're doing huge printings like with your books, they've cut a lot of the illustrations. Do you think that the popularity of your books is going to bring about a revival of more illustrations in kids' books?
Yeah, I do. I've seen a lot of books like Wimpy Kid now, and it's the same idea, is that you can do it economically.
Right.
Now, in picture books, there are these, beautiful, detailed paintings almost,
Right.
and those are very expensive.
expensive,
But what
right.
I do is pretty cheap.
Right. Right. Well, it's great because obviously it's getting kids reading. How do you feel about that? The fact that you have gotten a lot of kids who maybe have forget being readers at all. They've never picked up a book. I've heard again and again from parents that you've hooked them their kids on reading.
Well, I feel blown away by that, especially coming here today. There are a lot of kids that are 10 years old or younger, you know, and when I started writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I certainly didn't think this would still be going 10 years later. It's very energizing for the future, actually.
Right, it really is. And how about your drawings? You do everything digitally, right?
I do everything digitally. Usually I draw on a really big tablet.
Okay. How about the world tour? I know we have to go quickly here because we want to leave you plenty of time for questions. World tour, most intriguing place and kids where you visited?
My favorite places so far have been Latvia, oddly. I didn't know anything about Latvia, but I really liked it. I went to South Korea this year. That was really interesting. And in fact, there were those images of me walking around a place and 1 million kids were following me.
Right.
That was bizarre. I showed up at this place and nobody was supposed to know, and then all of a sudden, you know, it was like 100 kids all around. It was
Pied
crazy.
Piper.
Yeah, and then Brazil is really special.
Well, really cool. You did the world tour in two different legs, right?
2 different years,
Yeah,
and
2
this one will
different
be the
years.
3rd year of a world
You're
tour.
going to do a 3rd year?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Well, it's really exciting to have you, and thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You're the most generous of authors.
Oh, thank you very much.
Really are.
Thanks.
Let's, how about we throw it out to the kids?
5, 7 questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got time for some questions. So we have time for about 7 questions. Right here, the guy in the blue shirt.
I hope that I write at least 10 more books. I really hope so. Because what I really realized is that I thought when I started off that I was writing literature, and I was using Harry Potter as a frame of reference. Not that my work is like J.K. Rowling's, but because I thought that Greg would have to get older, right? I thought that with each book, Greg would have to get a little bit older, just like Harry Potter does. But I think that's the fun. What I realized is I'm really drawing cartoons. And I'm a cartoonist. I just write in a long form sort of way. And we don't want our cartoon characters to age and get older, right? We don't want to read about Charlie Brown saving for his 401k, right? So I like that about cartoon characters.
Okay. Little girl here.
It's not really a question, but I have tadpoles and I named them Rowley and Greg.
That's great. You know, Rowley is named after the town Rowley up here. Yeah, did you know that? Yeah. I was like, that sounds like just such a friendly name. You know, that sounds like a best friend name.
Okay, who next? Let's see.
Could you make a book that Greg goes to San Francisco? Because I was born there.
Ah. I was just in San Francisco just last week, actually. That's really cool. Yeah, that's hard because I try to make it so that you don't really know where Greg lives. What's really interesting for me is that kids in China read these books, in Brazil and Australia, and I think that they kind of see themselves in the characters. So I try not to, even when I'm going to have them travel to this island getaway, you won't really know where they go. I'm not going to name the place. And I think that's part of the fun of all of it. But maybe one day, maybe in the last book. How about that?
Okay, how about
When are we gonna get our book signed?
very soon, very soon, after a few more questions.
Right, just a few more questions.
Why did you name him Greg?
Why did I name him Greg? My mother had 3 boys, and she almost named each one of us Greg. So I thought I'd bring that name to life.
Do you read your own books?
They're the only books I'll read, actually. It is painful for me to read my own books. I have to force myself to do it. And I can't remember anything that happens in them. So when kids ask me about some character, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't remember a thing.
Will you ever change your illustrations?
I thought you was going to say my clothing style. I thought my son sent you. Will I change my illustrations? Actually, something that I did in those 8 years I worked on Wimpy Kid, I redrew and redrew and redrew the characters to to make them as perfect as I could, because I don't like it in cartoons like, for example, the Peanuts or the Simpsons, that the characters change over time. I think that takes away from it, and when you see an old one, you don't want to read it. You're like, that looks old. So I want to be very, very consistent with those characters.
Who's your favorite author?
Who's my favorite? I think the best storyteller of our generation is J.K. Rowling, right? I think my favorite author is maybe Bill Bryson or Malcolm Gladwell. Those are grown-up authors.
How did you get the idea to draw like that?
How did I get the idea to draw like that? Well, it was just a simplified version of my grown-up cartooning style. So it was just a matter of being very efficient with my drawings. I think we have time for a few more.
Okay, a couple more.
Lucia's walking around? Okay.
Will Greg ever go to high school?
Greg is frozen in pre-adolescent amber forever. He's never going to get older. In fact, I don't even know how old he is.
Will Greg ever go to Hawaii?
That's a good question. The director of the last Wimpy Kid movie, he called me from the set and he said, please send Greg to Hawaii in the next book because I want to film in Hawaii. And so when I'm writing this book, it's called The Getaway, and I'm definitely thinking about where we could film.
That's great.
Why did you skip all the books? And because you went 1, 2, 4, now 8.
That's not how you count to 10? 1, 2, 4, and 8. Yeah, we skip around. Whatever makes the most sense, we go there, because I don't think the books really need to be read in order. So why don't we get just a few in this aisle? This guy's been holding up his hand, and we'll get the kid next to him too.
What's your favorite book that you've written?
My favorite book is book 9. And while you're going over there, I'll get this kid.
If you had to choose a character you like best, what would it be?
Rowley is actually my favorite character because I like that he's not in a rush to grow up. I think most kids kind of feel like they want to get a little bit older so you can see that PG-13 movie, you know. But I like that Rowley likes being a kid. So how about 3 more?
After the Getaway book, what are you going to call your next one?
I have no idea. I think that's part of the fun of it for me. I don't even really know what The Getaway is really going to be about. So it'll be as much a surprise to me as it will be to you.
Are you thinking of adding any new characters?
I think I always add new characters just as a consequence of, writing new books. And this book's going to have an all-new setting. So, all right, we'll get one more here. And if any kids don't get a question answered, and I know there are a lot of hands up, if you get your book signed, I'd be happy to answer your question at the signing desk.
Okay, last question.
Yep.
How long does it take you to write a book?
How long does it take me? What is November 7th minus right now is exactly how long it takes me to write a book.
Jeff, I think you have to leave now and get going.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be back in Newburyport. Thank you so much for putting on this festival every year. It's really special. Thank you.